Welcome to the Heart of Dating podcast. Hey, it's Kate. I'm so glad you could join us this week as we try to untangle the ever so ambiguous world of dating as a Christian. Over here on Heart of Dating, we get real as we answer some tough questions and uncover transformative ways to approach Christian dating. Oh, and you better believe we have some laughs along the way, because last time I checked, the struggle is #real. You know what I'm saying? Now, let's get to the heart of the matter. What's up, you guys?
What's up, everybody?
It's Kate
and JJ.
And we are not quite at season 11.
No.
We're almost there.
This is a little sneak.
Sneaky sneak peek. You guys, this is a behind the scenes episode. So we're excited today because, we've never really talked about what goes into like the podcast, like what happens on our podcasts and how do we make this happen and like all those fun things. So we're going to talk about that today. And we're also just going to get real and honest because we've been gone for 6 weeks, right?
Sorry, we're going to get #real.
We're going to get
and
#real. Though someone called me out and said, please remove the #real from like the beginning intro, Kate, because it's so outdated. And I'm like, okay, noted.
All right. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for that comment, Mr. or Mrs., whoever
Could you
are.
be a little bit more honest next time and about how you really feel?
Oh my goodness. It's okay. It's all good. Yes. This is the place where we get #real.
And are we updating it?
Yeah, we are updating that.
Okay.
In fact, we are. So that's going to happen with season 11 too. But let's get into, before we get into like what we're going to get into today, babe, let's just give people an update on how we're doing.
We're doing good.
How are you?
I'm doing good.
No, like.
That's the guy response.
How are you really?
There we go. In the US, you always have to clarify. Or I feel like if you say, how's your heart? Then it's like very intentional. Let's talk about our feelings.
How's your heart?
I know. At least with guys, it's that way.
Yeah.
We're Gucci. We got back from Europe about 5 days ago.
Yes.
And we've been waking up at, have you noticed? We've been waking up at 6 a.m. on the dot every day.
Yeah.
And it's like that, you're wide awake, 6 a.m.
It's like, I can't go back to sleep.
Right.
I'm still tired, but I can't go back to sleep.
Which I'm usually not that way.
No.
I don't know how you guys are.
No, like in Europe, we had the most backward schedule because like over there during the summer, the sun doesn't go down until super late.
Yeah, but when you wake up the way you're wired, it's very hard for you to go to bed.
Yeah,
and
because my brain just automatically starts working. It's like,
right.
Ding, I'm awake.
Yes.
It's like that line in Frozen. The sky's awake, so I'm awake.
I know. Sometimes it's like kind of annoying.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm like that puppy I'm like Lovey in the morning too. I'm like, hi, are you awake?
I'm
What's
like, just another 30 minutes, please. Yeah. And so that's how we're different.
But you've been waking up.
Yeah, but I've been waking up and I've been using it. I've been in the gym 5 days in a row, getting back to it.
Let's go after all those crepes.
I know. I don't know how, other people operate. When I'm on vacation, I'm like, I'm not working out and I'm eating whatever I want.
Yeah.
Like the calories do not count here.
Yeah.
And that kind of caught up to me.
What was your favorite treat of the entire trip? Because for those of you that don't know, we went to France. We did pretty much 2.5 weeks in Paris, but a few days of that 2.5 weeks, we went to the French countryside, which was beautiful. We stayed at two castles, which is crazy to say out loud still. I just think it's so cool. And then we went to London, and then we went to the Cotswolds, which is like England's best kept secret. And then we went to Norway.
Yes.
So that's what we did for the 6 weeks we were gone. So back to my question, what was your favorite treat over those 6 weeks?
Favorite treat, like dessert treat?
Yeah.
I mean, that's hard.
I
ate so much ice cream and gelato and bakery goods.
Nutella ice cream in Paris at the end of our block was like the best
There's
thing.
A place, if you guys are ever in a big city, is it called Amaretto?
Amarino.
It's the best gelato. And it's a chain, which is kind of shocking. It's chain gelato, and it is
so good.
Legit.
Get the one that is has almost Nutella
hazelnut.
In it. It's like hazelnut, dark hazelnut.
With chocolate. It is so good.
It's amazing.
That was probably up there just because it was next door, and I went every single night. Like there was like a 30-minute line every night. And
in Paris.
I gladly stood in it.
I was like, I can't do this tonight, babe. I'll see you back.
The Pan Swiss, I got on this little, people just think about the chocolate croissants only or the almond croissants, which are great.
Yeah.
But the Pan Swiss is basically a croissant with chocolate chips and cream baked into it.
Like, you guys, I'm gluten-free, but I did have some bites of some gluten over there because the Parisian baked goods are just, there's nothing like French baked goods. And the Pan Suisses are so good.
Yeah.
And I really didn't know about those. Like when I lived in France years ago, like I didn't really eat those.
Yeah, they're not that popular.
I ate the croissant aux amandes.
Yeah, exactly.
And like the chocolate croissant.
I know. It's kind of like an alternative choice. Yeah. And then you realize this was the GOAT all along.
People are sleeping on the Pan Suisses.
I know, they really are.
We loved France, but I know you have some additional thoughts, and we kind of disagree about this a little bit.
Well, I would just say, the more I see on like TikTok and Instagram, like I'm not going to be one of these people who hate France and hate on Paris.
Yeah.
Because that's like a cool thing to do these days.
Yeah.
Like people at the end of the day forget that Paris is a city.
Yeah, it's a city.
It's not Disneyland.
Have y'all been to New York? Like, New York is dirty too.
I know. It's dirty. It's busy. Like, people can be rude.
People can be rude in New York.
I think these people get this idea that Paris is like Disney. Like, it's going to be perfectly immaculate, romantic, and clean. And it's not. It does smell, like, you're just walking in the street and it just smells like pee.
It does a lot of the time.
And it's not like a subtle, it's like it smacks you in the face, like this warm, disgusting pee, because people will pee out and about.
Yeah.
It's insane.
They do.
It's like a culturally okay, accepted thing to do.
Even in the metro, which the metro tunnels smell like pee too. But Paris is gorgeous. Like, if you just know that it's a city, like if you truly sink into the architecture of Paris, all the cream buildings, the intricacy of the architecture, like it is my favorite city in the world.
Yeah.
And it is so beautiful.
It is beautiful.
And definitely go in June, you guys, because Paris in June, it's light out till like after 10:30 at night and the weather's so good. Just go to Paris in June and go to all the parks and picnic in all the parks. And it's just truly glorious.
I will say, like, people can hate all they want on Paris, but the history and the architecture is amazing. I like the culture. Like, you can go to dinner and not tip and sit there for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And they do not care.
And I love, like, the Parisians, what I do love is they are really about that, like, almost community culture, like they love long dinners and they're not on their phone.
That's great.
And they bring their dogs.
Yeah.
And yes, they're smoking. Okay. That is
there were so many like little poodles sitting on they had their own chair at the table. It was so cute.
We saw so many dogs.
I know. And then
we never saw as many dogs as we did in the Cotswolds.
I know. That was insane. But the last thing about Paris that I do appreciate is that, as a work culture, and this is very different from the US, people work in Europe and specifically Paris, they work to live. Meaning as soon as 5 o'clock hits, 6 o'clock hits, you are like running out of there to go picnic, drink wine, eat cheese, and it's not a rat race.
Right. I know.
And
I love that about Paris.
Actually, the historical sentiment, that's not just Paris. The historical sentiment in Europe is that after World War II, which was only, 80 years ago? It's not long ago.
Yeah.
After World War II, there was so much death and destruction that people just wanted to enjoy life while they had it.
I love that.
And we didn't have
they
that.
Still like maintain that mentality.
Right. And we didn't have that death and destruction in the US.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I loved it. I mean, like, we could talk about this, like Europe, this whole episode because there's so much. We haven't even touched on London, the Cotswolds, Norway with your family.
Norway was crazy. That's the most, like, geographically, that was probably the most insane countries ever. With all the fjords, and we did something called Pulpit Rock.
That hike was the most beautiful, majestic thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It was crazy. I mean, and it was pouring rain when the hike started, you guys. Like, we were like, all right, we're going to do this, and just literally pray that it's sunshine at the top. And it was so good.
It was nuts. It was pouring rain. It was like one of those journeys where it's like, we very well might get to the top, and it's going to be raining, and it's going to be foggy. And you just, I don't know if you guys have ever hired that before for the hikers listening. There's nothing worse than hiking all this way and then you get to the top and it's just cloudy.
Saw all these people on the way down where it was clearly raining the whole time up and down.
Yes.
And they just looked so mad.
I had never seen
disgruntled.
Such dejected people
they were like,
in my life.
This sucks. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry.
I did feel bad for him.
Because especially when we got up there and the sun came out and it was beautiful, I was like, ooh, that really would suck to be that.
I know. But Norway, that is like a bucket list place that everyone should go to.
Yeah.
Just as a heads up, do not spend that much time in Oslo, the capital. Like,
it's cool, but
you need like a day
like
there.
A ton
but
of time there.
It's actually kind of a very boring city. The beauty of Norway is on the west coast.
Don't tell your uncle that. He's
north.
gonna be like, excuse me.
I know. So we loved it. It was a great trip. I think most importantly, it was just awesome to be like super emotionally connected with you. Yeah, in unity and traveling.
And we did this trip because my dream initially was I wanted to get married in France in a chateau.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't possible. And then we decided we're going to plan our honeymoon to go to France and Europe and see your family in Norway. And then we decided not to do that because it was just a lot of planning on top of planning a wedding.
Yeah.
And so we said, okay, next year we're going to go to France and we're going to go to Norway and see your family because most of them couldn't come to the wedding, pretty much all of them. And then we threw in London and the Cotswolds because the Cotswolds was on my bucket list. Like,
and
I really wanted to
go. The funny thing about that is that there's always an old adage. I'm not sure if people here have heard it. I remember hearing this when I was single and I kind of laughed at it, but didn't think much of it. We're so obsessed with finding someone who's similar to us as far as likes and interests and hobbies. The only thing that finding a person, a spouse who has the common interests, likes, and hobbies will do for you is make your vacations easier.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. And that's where we experienced
But we
Kait.
look for that all the time.
Yeah. But that was probably one of the funny contrasts of the trips was Kait. Her perfect day was going to like an arboretum, a rose garden,
vintage
and then
shopping.
And then like an English, like little cottage decor, trendy place.
Oh my gosh, Dalesfield Organic though.
I'm like after 3 hours of walking in the arboretum.
Arboretum. Babe.
Arboretum.
Arboretum.
I think is it moratorium? Is that where people?
I don't know, babe.
A crematorium. I think that's what I'm getting confused with.
That's because you went there to die.
Well, because you might as well send me to a crematorium if I have to go to an arboretum. Because it is the most boring thing of my life. I don't know how people enjoy that.
And after there was a garden that I wanted to go to after the Arboretum, and it was like right on the same road. And JJ was like, no, I cannot.
I'm going to be in a car.
Well, our ticket for the Arboretum gets us into the garden for free. And he's like, no. I'm like, well, it's right here. So I'm just going to go.
Yeah, I don't do that often, but I was like, I can't look at another tree and say, wow.
Oh my gosh. But I did go golfing with you twice.
I know. And that was amazing. That was fun. It's like going on a walk in the Arboretum, except with golf.
It was fun, babe. It was fun. So I love that trip with you, honey.
I love it
too.
too.
Okay, guys. So that's a little bit how we're doing. We're excited to get back into season 11. In fact, season 11 comes out next week. And you guys, we have a new theme. We have a theme. And we can't wait to share about it. We're not going to share about it yet.
We can't share on this?
I mean, I was going to wait till next week.
Okay, fine.
We're going to wait. And I think we're going to launch like maybe some sort of teaser video. It's going to be fun. But I think you guys are really going to like it. Okay. And also today, we are actually launching something really exciting. You want to tell them or should I tell them?
You tell them.
Okay. So this has been kind of a long time coming and my podcast team has been like, hey, you guys should do this. This would be really awesome for Heart of Dating. And I've been like, I don't know. And then it finally grew on me and I was like, we're going to do this. It's going to be awesome. So today, you guys, we are launching officially, drumroll please. We are launching Patreon, the Heart of Dating Patreon. And if you don't know what Patreon is, it's like it's a platform for creators like podcasters and YouTubers to really have support from their people, from like you guys, our HOD family. And I'm waving at you guys right now on YouTube. Hey guys. Talking to you. And so we're really excited. We're going to give you more behind the scenes on Patreon. You're going to get to ask us questions that you will be the only people that can ask questions that will be featured on the Heart of Dating podcast, which is something new we're going to do every episode. And we have a whole bunch of other things. We're going to talk about it more at the end of the show today. But we're stoked. This is launching today, and I can't wait because I want to just like get intimate with our HOD fam.
Yeah, and it means a lot. I think it means a lot for the patrons, and it means a lot for us.
Yeah.
We actually will tell you guys.
Yeah.
I think what's fun about today's episode is I love it when creators and people, especially football players, something that I'm excited about.
Yeah.
I love it when they pull the curtain back and talk about the behind the scenes.
Like what really goes on?
Yeah.
Like, do we make money on this podcast?
Yeah.
Like, how much time does it take? Like, is this an easy thing? Is this the same as like throwing up an Instagram post? Like, I laugh because I'm like, it's not.
Right.
But, like how do we go into the decisions? Like, how do we decide guests? Like things like that.
Yeah.
I just think this has been around for 5.5 years. We've had Heart of Dating, and I've never really shared those details, really.
Yeah. No, it's fun. And I think the podcasting industry is pretty interesting.
It's so interesting.
The way we consume stuff. And so
I think the most interesting part is everybody wants to start a podcast, but nobody really knows what it entails. I get so many questions of like, Kate, I want to start a podcast. What should I do? Or what does it entail? And I'm like, well, let me tell you. Because I love what we get to do, but it's not like this easy snap of my fingers. I'm going to start an Instagram account.
If somebody asks you that, like if I ask you, hey, I want to start a podcast, what do I need to know? What's the first thing you say?
Usually, because I get this question a lot, I'm like, why do you want to start a podcast? What is your deep why? You have to have that because running a podcast is not easy and it's really hard to get discovered in podcasting. It's not like TikTok where you could blow up in a month and get 1 million followers. It's not like Instagram. It's really hard to get discovered. And the podcast industry is so saturated right now that if you want to start a podcast today, like you have to have a really unique why.
That's true.
Because there are so many shows out there. We're going to talk about some of the stats about podcasting because I think it's really interesting. But my first question is, why do you want to start a podcast? Because some people are like, I just think it would be fun. I'm like, okay, there needs to be more of a why than I think it would be fun. Or like, I feel like I want to do it. Like, I'm not going to tell you to stop your calling if you really feel like it's what God is calling you to. That's how I started Heart of Dating. However, there is a lot that goes into it. And I just don't think people know because we have like TikTok where you can get famous like overnight, right? And so people kind of assume all social media is that way.
Well, and we can talk about it. I think there's a huge difference between like I bought a mic off Amazon for $100. I record my episode, I edit it, and I upload it. And that works. I think that's kind of the beauty of podcasting is it's very, very easy to get into. But with any industry that has a very, very low entry, it's a very, very low entry barrier, you're going to have 1 million people on around there. And so it's really hard to stick out.
Yeah. And the other question is like, who's your audience?
Right.
Because if you don't have an audience like an email list, Instagram, TikTok, already an audience built, and you're just starting and you have like 100, 200, 300 followers on Instagram and you're just starting a podcast, it is going to be so hard to get discovered.
Yeah,
like that is like the finest needle in a haystack. And that's not to discourage people. It's just, I don't think people understand that.
And the last thing for someone who's starting is one thing you hear a lot from the industry and the networks is this. The first 90 days is the most important.
It is,
to your podcast.
So you have to go in with like a really good strategy.
Exactly.
You have to.
Like if you're thinking about it, go in with a really sharp, awesome strategy and see how it goes. Don't try to just build, from 20 to 25 to 30. It's going to take a very, very long time.
And you ideally don't want to stop. Once you start the podcast, you want to be consistent.
Yeah,
like,
I see that all the time.
Yeah, they're like, I'm going to do 10 episodes and then I stop. And then I'm like, oh, you just shot your algorithm on the pod. Like, they're like in terms of getting on the charts at all.
The flame out like constantly among peers.
That's the biggest thing I think with podcasting.
Flaming out.
So we'll talk about more. But the first thing we're going to talk about is, oh my gosh, excuse me. I think I just burped.
That's disgusting.
Oh my gosh. We're just unhinged today, you guys. Also, I'm recovering from a cold, so you probably can tell that. Okay. Dave, stop looking at me that way. Do you guys on YouTube see how he's looking at me? Stop. Okay. I can look at you that way for other reasons too. Ew. I love you. Okay. How do we prep for the show?
We actually do a lot of prep.
We do a lot of prep.
I think that's probably one big thing that makes us a little different from some podcasts.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I love when Kate talks about the guests that she has on.
Yeah.
You could probably count on one hand. You've had maybe 150 guests, 200 guests at this point.
Yeah.
You could probably count on one hand who's come prepared with notes.
Oh my gosh. Out of my guests, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
John Tyson being one. I was so impressed
Gary
by
Thomas.
him. Gary Thomas. Like, there's just, some people who've come prepared for the show, and I'm so honored by that. But yeah, we do prepare a lot for every episode, and we listen to you guys. That's our biggest thing. My biggest thing is we want to serve you guys, bring you content that's going to help you.
Yeah.
So I specifically, and JJ too, pay attention to our DMs, and we have people helping us too. Like, I have someone specifically, my girl Kelsey right now, helping me in my DMs, like, and she also tells me like, hey, this is things people are bringing up. We also look in our Facebook group, which if you're not a part of that, go check it out. Our Facebook group on Heart of Dating Facebook group, because you guys bring up a lot of great questions there. And Elena, who is our brand and community manager, she'll always tell me like, hey, this is coming up a lot. I see a lot of like breakups right now, or I see a lot of people getting ghosted right now, or, so, and then I'll go in and check and verify that. I do tons of polls on Instagram when I'm kind of like wondering, what are you guys wanting in this moment, or what would serve you best?
Yeah.
I do comments on, or polls on Instagram, or even just doing the Q&As I do sometimes on Instagram, seeing the questions you guys ask me.
Those
There's
so
often
helpful.
like big themes in those questions. And so, we don't just like create an episode because this is going to be cool and fun and like we just want to do it. We really think through what is going to help serve you guys.
Yeah, that's so good. And one big thing is like, it's not a rehearsed single talk keynote that you guys are going to hear once a year. Is very, very relevant. And we actually do a ton of research too, like for every episode.
Especially where like we're talking about biblical things, like very big biblical truths.
Yes.
Or
if we talk scripture, like it's very, very well researched beforehand. Like we really don't want to go into any interview or conversation unprepared. Another big thing is and
without, sorry to interrupt you, we sometimes also talk to other like mentors and people like, hey, we're going to do this topic. Do you have any thoughts on this subject?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we try to stay really, really close to what singles are going through.
Yeah.
What are the pain points? And so if you guys participate in any of those votes or polls, it's actually so helpful.
Yeah.
And then the questions you guys send in, the DMs, which we try to respond to, they're so helpful.
And something we're doing on Patreon is, especially for our new Patreon family, we're gonna be giving you guys priority to ask us questions, be featured on the podcast, like I said, but also to give us ideas for future episodes. So we're gonna listen to you guys probably the most out of any person in our community, because you guys are supporting us. So that we're really excited about that.
Yeah.
I had another question that just came up in this.
Yes.
People always are curious, like, how do I select the guests for the show?
Yeah.
And this is like just spans before you came on, because I had a lot more interview style podcast before you came on. But here's the thing, guys, when an author releases a book, and you're a podcaster, the publishing house sends out basically the same email to all these different podcasters saying, will you interview this person? And what ends up happening is so many podcasters are like, yeah, that sounds good. And they'll interview that person, and the publishing house gives you a list of questions to ask that interviewer about their book. And so what ends up happening is you have all these different podcasts with the same guest within the same 2-3 weeks. And it's just can be a little bit annoying, right? Because it ends up being like the same interview because most of them are asking the same question.
It's so funny. Like if you follow a few different Christian podcasts and networks, you see very quickly, if you're looking in like a 3 to 4 week span, you see the same name popping up over and over and over again.
Yes. And you're like, whoa, who is that person? But you're not going to listen to all those episodes.
Right.
If you've heard one of them, you've heard the rest of them typically.
And most people don't listen to like 5 or 6 different kind of similar podcasts.
Right.
You kind of have 1 or 2 that you stick to.
Yeah. So my thing is I really don't want to do that. And I've rarely done that. When I've had an author on when their book is coming out, I always, I've pretty much never asked them the questions that the publisher has sent me.
You kind of throw in the trash.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't even really look at them. I basically tell the publishing house, hey, this is a podcast on dating. And more than likely, I don't get that many people who have like a specific dating book, right? We know that those are a little bit few and far between. So I usually just am like, pull a concept from their book or things from their book that then I want to highlight in a sense that connects back to singleness or dating.
Yeah.
So it has nothing to do with the questions they're getting asked on other podcasts.
Exactly. Like if it's an episode on prayer, like we're going to talk about prayer and singleness.
Right.
How to pray as a single. If I find someone who I think is the one, what a prayer looks like there to confirm or wrestle with.
Yes.
That's exactly.
So like that's one way people get podcast guests.
Right.
And I get pitched every day for podcast guests. But truly, I research the topics I want to cover for you guys. And then I think and pray through and research who's the best guest to talk about this subject.
Yeah.
I don't just say, oh, yeah, that's a cool person. Let's have them on and figure out a random topic. No, I come up with the topic and then I research and figure out the guest.
Annie Downs does that really well. She calls them bridge. You know, like bridges.
Like with our series.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So she'll go out and be like, I want someone who's really great about talking about narcissism. She'll try and go find, and this is what we do as well. You go try to find the best Christian resource, and try and book them. And then you bridge other people and listeners to that podcast.
Yeah.
But I have a good question for you.
Yeah.
What are things that we really try to avoid on our podcasts?
Yes.
Or things that kind of just kill podcasts in general?
Right. So I think first thing is not having the same guests that everyone else is having all the time.
Right.
Or asking all the same questions.
Right.
That's like really big for me.
Uh-huh.
The other thing is not doing an episode just because. Like I want every episode to have a purpose and meaning and serve you guys. And that's super important to me.
Mm-hmm.
But like, let's get nitty gritty. Okay. There's been a ton of reviews and comments on iTunes, and thank you guys for the ones you've written that are awesome. I love you.
And the constructive feedback.
And some of the constructive. Some of them are, whatever. Some of them are mean, and that's okay. I'm fine. Okay. I'm fine. I don't like mean comments. It's hard for me because I put so much into this, so I don't like the mean comments.
We do read them for
I read them,
not for like self-esteem purposes, for feedback.
No.
Like we really do look for feedback. I like the
constructive, kind feedback. Yes. I work very well with the sandwich effect. Affirm, give the feedback, affirm again. That's like my preferential treatment for affirm.
Then I thought you said like affirm, give the feedback.
No, like affirm something you like about the podcast.
Yes.
Give some constructive feedback. And then like say, but Kate, you're doing a great job. Or I really love the show.
Yes.
And then I'm like, I will take that and be like, awesome.
Yes.
But if you're like, I really used to like the show, but Kate says, too much, which is something people have said.
They have.
And I know they're like, Kate says, or she makes these weird sounds.
Now, every time you say that, we're all going to notice.
Okay, well, I've told Scott to our editor to get rid of those as much as he can because I'm just a big active listener. Like I'm like, oh, But then people are like, it sounds like these weird noises. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I've tried to be more cognizant of that. Shut up.
Interesting. That's good.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
stink.
that is good. I do think, when I listen to podcasts, things that kill it for me, honestly, I hate to just be this blunt, but if they're boring, like in the first 20 seconds, 30 seconds, if people are boring or I personally
too monotone.
Too monotone is one. Another one is like, I hate to be mean. Is this mean to say? When people are boring and they're not funny.
Oh, like they're like really, really rigid. You
yes.
mean? Oh,
or just like, I think people, and I do this too. My hands have blood on them. They think they're funnier than they are.
Oh,
and
that you do that too, honey.
yes, thank you. But I just like, if that happens within the first minute, I move on. Or if it's a bad quality audio, like if it's recorded on like a cell phone or a Zoom call, like I always feel terrible for our guests when we provide a guest interview, and especially the guest does not have great quality audio.
Yeah.
It just sounds like you're listening to like a phone call conversation between two people at that point,
I think what you said just rung in me true. Like the other thing that really frustrates me for podcasts when I listen to podcasts is when people are really, and this has happened to me on some podcasts that I've been on throughout the years, is when people are just not engaging interviewers.
Yeah.
Like they ask you a question, you say the answer, and they're like, on to the next question.
I know.
And there's not really
that's
conversation.
A huge miss.
And that's like a learned skill that God helped me to create. If you go back to episode 1, I don't know how good of an interviewer I was with Garen, some of those early people, but like you have to like engage and throw the script away, or like throw the questions away and like ad lib and engage with their answer. I feel like there's just some interviews I've been asked like where they're just staring at me and they're like, okay, so the next question I have is, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
I know.
And those aren't fun, engaging interviews to listen to.
Well, when you guys listen to any other podcasts, listen for the hosts. I think Annie Downs does a great job.
Oh, she's
Janine
awesome.
does a great job of this.
Janine Amapala.
They're like hyper curious about who they're interviewing, right? Yeah. And they want the why behind the answer. Oh, that's interesting. Why is that?
Lovey's coming in.
Hi, Lovey. Thank you. So, the last thing that kills.
You guys can see Lovey on YouTube.
I know. Lovey. She's very sweet.
Yeah.
She's so self-involved though. Lovey is.
She is.
The last thing that kills an episode is this. When they go off tangents way too frequently and they are not relevant.
Right. Are we doing that today's episode? I mean, this is like an unhinged episode, so I feel like it's fine.
This is more behind the scenes.
It's just casual.
You guys can probably notice this one's a lot different than a typical episode, because on a typical episode, we really try to move through a lot of content.
Yeah, we have like pages of notes, and we do often teach, and so we want to actually, speaking of next season, we want to teach, but we also want to bring in some more fun conversational elements too.
Yes.
And add in some dating questions specifically from the Patreon community. So I think this next season is going to be really fun because we're adding like these different elements, basically things that we've been researching and love about other podcasts.
Yes.
And we're going to incorporate those little different elements from their shows.
And we'll keep them tight. I think it's like a sermon. Have you ever sat in a sermon where the preacher tried to open with like the anecdote, the storytelling, and it just kind of missed?
Yeah.
And it's kind of painful. You're kind of like,
oh, yes, I have.
Okay.
I know.
And like Judah Smith is obviously the best. He is like, you're like laughing. It's like really, really funny and relevant. And then he ties it up perfectly to the scripture he's preaching that day.
He's really good with tying it in.
But when that's not done well, when a tangent is not done well, it's very painful to sit through.
Yes.
I'm like, this is please.
Okay, let's answer the next question. I think a lot of people are curious about this. How much does it cost to run a podcast? And then simultaneously, like, can you make money from a podcast?
Yeah, it depends, right? On
so
like a basic
cost, like it costs different when I first began to now.
Right.
But I also like did it basically full time solo. Okay. So there are a lot of you have to kind of measure it in hard costs, like actual money, and time costs. Because like there are actual things you spend money on for a podcast, like equipment, and there's time costs. And I think that some people think that running a podcast might take like not that much time. And if you do run a podcast well, it does take a significant amount of time, truly.
Right. It does. Well, it depends. Like if it's a podcast where they just grab a mic, hop on a couch with like an awesome NFL player and they're just talking shop.
And there's no like pre-planning to it.
Right. Like that's
there's no
very different.
Questions or just chilling. Like, yeah, that is different. But think about it. Even with that, you have to schedule the guest. You have to like set up the room. You have to post the episode,
Logistics
edit it.
Of scheduling,
you have to promote the episode via email, via Instagram. Like there's still a lot that goes into it.
And shout out to the editors. Like,
yes.
And Scott, like that is a ton of time.
Yeah.
We have such premium content for free on our Instagram and Twitter and TikTok feeds.
Yeah.
There is so much time and effort.
Who's on Twitter?
I mean, I'm on Twitter. Listen.
What about Threads, baby?
Threads is cool. First of all, it's like people copying, pasting, just like
he's a hater.
Christian
He's
encouragement and
hater.
Versus only like it's kind of just like a devotional right now.
I know.
You know,
I'm trying to not do that, to be honest. Like,
I know.
let's just be
like I go to Threads
free flowing.
and I love God and I love scripture. I love encouraging quotes, but like if I go through Threads, 95 out of like 100 of the threads are Christian encouragement.
Mm-hmm. That was a tangent, by the way.
Okay. Well, that was a relevant one, right?
I think.
We're going to be...
Yeah, so we have hard costs and like, honestly, should we tell them like roughly how much it costs a month? In hard costs?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So,
I'd say it's what, 2,500?
Yeah. That's like also with the yearly cost of like equipment and anything else we need. So like that's like prorated in.
Yeah. From editing to the email service, the website, Riverside is, you know,
graphics, like
right.
All the
it's
things.
about, and plus our time that goes into it, it's about 2,500.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way. You know, this is very, very common in the podcast industry. If you have a podcast, a good podcast that is not losing money, you are in great shape.
Yeah.
It is really hard to...
Like a really successful podcast, which will tell you what a successful podcast is. We're going to tell you that.
Exactly. But like if
you're not losing money,
right.
That's amazing.
If you're not unless you're a one-man show, like recording, editing, posting, doing everything, and you have if you have people on your team and you're not losing money on your podcast, that is like bravo, well done, a really, really amazing feat. Like you do not run a podcast to make money.
Not initially.
Right.
No. Like it's possible through time, and let's talk about that. How do you make money? The biggest way you make money through the podcast specifically is through ads.
Yes.
Okay. And you'll notice we do ads on the Heart of Dating podcast, but here's some things I don't think people know like at all. Did you know that you really can't earn any money at all from ads until you reach 10,000 downloads per episode? 10,000 downloads per episode. And for us, that didn't really start until just a few years ago. But even if you reach 10,000 downloads per episode, the reality is you get paid per 1,000 downloads. Okay. You get paid per 1,000 downloads. And a really healthy rate to get paid per 1,000 downloads these days is $25 per 1,000 downloads. So even if you spend a few years getting to 10,000 downloads per episode, if you did one ad on your episode, you would get paid $250 for that one ad on that episode.
Right. And think about it, based on the cost we just gave, if we did 4 episodes in a month, like once a week,
it's like $1,000
for $2,500. That's like $700.
$250.
Yeah.
They would get paid $250.
Oh, no, I'm talking about cost though.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Sorry.
So your cost would be for 4 episodes about 600
something. Math is hard.
615.
Yeah. Somebody check us on that.
625. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so dumb.
No, 625 an episode is roughly what it costs per episode. No, it costs more than that.
No, for 2,500.
Oh, a month. Okay, yeah.
Divided by 4 is 6 plus another 100.
Yeah.
For 2,400. So basically, to break even on that episode, you need to do 1 ad. Yeah. 2 ad that gets you to $500, and then a 3rd ad. And that's kind of like sometimes where we fall is you guys will notice sometimes we have 2 ads, maybe we have 3. It just depends.
Rarely we have 3, but we made a mistake. The $2,500 a month is in hard costs. That doesn't include our team. additional and our
okay.
time. So $2,500 is just like the hard costs, like actual bills that we pay. That's prorated with equipment and different things that now, as more of a professional podcast, it takes to run Heart of Dating.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't include what we pay our 2 employees and like me and JJ's time cost. And so it's actually a lot more than that per month to run the show.
Yeah, it is.
So you're just measuring in like the actual hard costs.
Right.
That hard cost, it's like $625 an episode, but that is absent of our team's costs, you and I's technical costs if we were calculating that. So So anyway, the thing is, on top of this is the other thing, is a lot of podcasters eventually end up working with an agency. And so if you work with a podcast network or podcast ad agencies, then they take a cut from your total like amount. So at the end of the day, you might be taking home, I don't know, like 30% less than the total amount. So instead of, if you had 10,000 downloads, you're getting paid $25 per download, per 1,000 download, but then your team is taking home 30%, then you're getting paid actually $175 an episode. So that's kind of wild, and I don't think a lot of people know that. And this gets even more wild. I think this is really interesting.
And we'll end on this as far as, the podcast industry. If you guys want to know what makes a successful podcast, it's actually pretty insane.
Yeah. Should I say it? Okay. We have some stats here, so bear with us. Okay. So if your new episode of your podcast within 7 days of its release gets more than 32 downloads, you're in the top 50% of podcasts.
That's
more than
top
32
50.
Downloads for 1 week, you're in the top 50%. If you get more than 112 downloads, you're in the top 25% of podcasts. If you get 443 downloads in 1 week, you're in the top 10% of podcasts. If you get more than 1,000 downloads in 1 week, you're in the top 5% of podcasts. And if you get more than 5,000 downloads a week, you're in the top 1% of all podcasts that exist. And this is data from 2023. And remember that I said, even to make money, you have to get 10,000 downloads an episode. Now, so let's say you're in the top 1%. So you got 5,000 downloads in a week. Probably at the lifetime of the episode, you might make 10,000. You might not. You might.
It depends if
it
it's
really
a good
depends.
episode or not. Yeah.
So even in the top 1% of podcasts aren't necessarily even really able to monetize. Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy if you think about it.
It is actually wild.
Because it doesn't sound like a very big number. To be in the top 1%, you would think the number is like 20,000.
Right.
30,000.
You would think.
Right.
And like,
it just goes to show how many podcasts exist.
Yeah. And so, and like, this is how many podcasts exist. As of 2023, there are 4,105,166 total podcasts that are registered around the world. Okay. So we do make, we're definitely in the top 1% of podcasts, and we do have a lot of downloads per episode. I mean, May alone, we had 225,000 downloads in the month of May total. So that was really awesome. But that also isn't just new episodes. That's also old episodes. Yeah. And yeah, it was a huge month for us specifically. And so we're really proud of that, really excited. Like, that's really cool. But you would hear that number and you're like, that's awesome. You guys must be making bank. And we're like, we're not. No. I
don't even know if we came out even in May.
No, I don't. Maybe
because we didn't do. No,
we didn't.
Ads.
We didn't come out even.
So that's let's recap that. Our best month ever.
225,000 downloads, and we are still not coming. We still lost money.
Yeah.
Even though it's like a huge month, best month ever of the podcast, like. And we did have some ads. We didn't like blow up the ads in May. But yeah, that's the reality. And so then you might be asking, so why are you guys doing this?
Like,
this is like a lot of money. And like,
and by the way, and we're not complaining about losing money.
No.
This
definitely
is
not.
For us, the podcast first and foremost, and you started it, right? So
this is like my heart cry. Like, this is my passion, my godly purpose. Like, this is like what I feel called to do. And I know JJ does too.
Yeah.
So it's first and foremost our calling. So would we still do this? I mean, if we got to an egregious amount of money that we were losing per month, we'd probably say, maybe we gotta take our break. Like, but you know, it's still sustainable. Why? Because we have, because of the podcast, formed other forms of income. But I just don't think people realize, like, the podcast is actually, this is interesting. Ready, babe? The podcast is the number one way we reach people. We reach more people on the podcast than any other outlet.
That's true.
But it's the way we make the least amount of money.
Well,
okay? It's funny in that regard.
It's the most meaningful way we reach people, because you get way over 220,000 impressions on your Instagram in a month. Right. But they're not nearly as meaningful. And that's impressions.
It could be somebody who doesn't follow me.
Right. They're not nearly as meaningful as listening to an episode.
Right.
So a download versus an impression on Instagram or TikTok
is like way more.
Very, very different.
Yeah. Yeah. And the podcast has become an avenue and a community that has spanned beyond just the podcast into our Facebook community, social media, conference every year, HODC, right? Events, courses, and some of those means are how we are able to make some kind of revenue, which does help run.
It helps so much because
podcast.
Yeah, because HOD Dating, you know, our philosophy is, and this is a behind the scenes, I don't take a salary from HOD Dating.
Yeah, JJ does not.
And
I take a really small salary.
You take a shockingly small salary.
I've made way more before, like in terms of my career.
Like
before HOD Dating.
If we're being more transparent, you make just barely a little bit more than your administrative assistant.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you've thought about that.
I haven't. Thanks for pointing it out.
It's like very, very close. And so our philosophy right now is everything that we can do to reinvest into HOD Dating and keep it as lean as possible is how we want to operate.
Yeah.
And I have my own business on the side. That's how we kind of pay for most of the bills, which is great. And then that way we can go into HOD Dating and say, well, if this is not all about making money, how can we best serve people? And that's an amazing place to be. I think sometimes I really, really encourage people, if you're going to go into vocational ministry, like full-time ministry or passion ministry, put yourself in such a position that you don't have to rely on that church or that ministry or nonprofit to pay your bills.
Right. Yeah, that's good.
Because then you can truly go in and serve for serving's sake. And you don't feel slighted when you're average out your hours and you're getting paid $4.25.
Like, I'm not going to quit HOD Dating. That's what I feel. Even if I'm making very little, like truly little money to live off of from the podcast.
Exactly.
It's the bread and butter. It's what has brought everything else together, and it will always be there.
Yes.
So, but here's where we want to end today. We want to end telling you some of our dreams for Patreon and why what we're wanting to do. Like, we have a lot of dreams for this podcast and growing it and bringing you even more. We have dreams of growing YouTube to give you more fun video content. We have dreams of investing in more resources for you on the show. We have dreams of JJ starting his own men's podcast specific for men. Woo woo, let's go, babe. And so I just want to tell you a little bit about Patreon, because if you've been around and you have listened to HOD Dating, you love this podcast, you love this ministry and what we're doing, Patreon is an awesome way for you guys to support us. And literally as low as $5 a month. It's super accessible. $5 a month is the lowest entry point. And it's like $5, $10, and $25. And then we have some bonus tiers, like if you just feel like giving more, but $5, $10, and $25. So we're not like asking for a lot. And we'll give you just like a little bit of a rundown of what's in each tier. Should we do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the first tier, we call it Just Friends. It's $5. And
we're just talking.
Yeah, we're just friends. We're
church
talking.
Crush.
You know, like it's a little bit of a church crush.
You're watching them during worship.
Yeah.
You're watching them during small group.
Hey, what's happening?
Yeah, no,
hey.
yeah.
Oh, did he raise his hands in worship?
Exactly. That's where we are.
He might be cuter
He likes
than I
my
thought.
photo. Oh my God.
He sent me a heart eye emoji. What does that mean?
No. He sent me a flame on my story.
What does that mean?
Like the...
Yeah, I'm saying I would think, what does that mean? I know what a flame is. The flame emoji.
Okay, I didn't know if you were having a blonde moment. Okay.
Oh my gosh. And so with the $5 Just Friends, okay, you're going to get access to an exclusive bonus podcast episode during our live podcast season. So super exciting. It'll just be for patrons at $5 and the other tiers. So every tier with Patreon, you get access to the previous tier plus something else, basically. That's how it works.
Yeah.
So tier number 2, do you want to tell them that or do you want me to?
Tier 1's like cup of coffee. Tier 2 is dating.
$10.
It'd be like,
dating.
hey, would you buy me a Chipotle bowl? No double chicken, no guac, just like a
basic bowl.
Yeah. We're dating.
Basic bowl.
Right. Would you spot me 10?
Yeah.
Once a month on our main date.
Yes, I love it. And you'll still get the bonus episode, but you'll also be able to ask questions, like voice memo us questions that have the chance to be answered on the podcast live with me and JJ. And you'll be able to submit topics to be covered on the HOD podcast. And we'll give you like that first priority.
That's going to be great.
Yeah, I love
I'm
that.
actually super excited for that.
Like, who knows? We might be like, okay, for this episode, you patrons get to pick what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
You guys submitted the ideas. Vote on the one you want us to do next. You know?
I wish when I was dating, especially like dating you, I wish I would have had just like someone to ask a question.
Yes.
Every now and then.
Yeah. So I'm excited about those voice memo questions because you can like actually share. And we're going to do some testimonials, which will be fun too.
That'll be fun.
So the tier 3 is pretty much our highest tier outside of the bonus tiers. And this is in a relationship.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, we upgraded.
What do you spend $25 a month on?
DTR.
DTR.
I mean, we spend more on coffee.
Like what? Oh, yeah. You buy nice coffee.
Yeah, I like coffee.
Like premium coffee. I'm like a Folgers
I like my
guy.
coffee, babe.
I'm a blue collar Walmart Folgers, like cheap as possible, please. Which, in fairness, like Folgers
that coffee has mold, babe.
It's like acid.
It has mold.
Like in general, mine specifically.
Folgers has mold in it.
Okay, whatever. No, it doesn't. Okay, 25 is like a Planet Fitness membership.
Okay, sure. But you get the monthly bonus episode. You get to ask questions, submit topics to be covered on the podcast, and we get to hang out once a month on Zoom together, like in a group setting. We're going to do a live monthly Zoom chat. We'll probably have different themes. We'll probably have you guys vote on what you want to happen. So that's going to be super fun. And in this tier, you're going to get discounts on School of Dating, okay, our 8-week mentorship program. You're also going to get a discount to our Heart of Dating conference. And so this tier and any of the above tiers is where you get all the discounts. Let's go.
That is worth it.
That is worth it. I mean, if you're going to sign up for School of Dating or a conference, like, you're going to get that.
What was the last School of Dating discount?
It was like a big percent, like 40% or 35%.
Yeah. I think it was like $800.
No, it was $1,000 total.
$1,000 discount.
Oh, sorry, no. We're not on the
You
same
guys can
page.
do some math. I know.
We're not good at math today.
I know.
Also, this is becoming the longest episode. But
I know.
For fun, we have 2 top tiers. We have tier 4, which is the one for $50. And this is just if you want to give above and beyond. The only additional thing you'll get is you're going to get a fun HOD hat that we'll send you. Okay, it's going to be fun. And the last tier is True Love, and that's $100. And it's basically the same. It's just if you want to give above and beyond, which like that's only if God is.
You had a dream. That. We were the one, and you wanna
stop. Okay, last thing, you guys, we do have some goals. If we do get to 300 patrons, which would be so flippin' cool. Can you imagine? Just even 300.
Yeah.
This would help us pay for episodes of the Heart of Dating podcast, you guys. It would just really help us.
This would keep the podcast at even.
Yeah, it would be really helpful for us. Our goal in this next few months is to get to 500. That's our stretch goal. And then we'd be able to invest more in our team and do even more above and beyond the podcast, which
For
we're
content.
excited about.
And then this is the fun one.
Yeah. Do you want
Are
to tell
you
them about
ready?
the last one?
If we hit 1K patrons,
Yeah.
which we can do,
I think so.
guess what we're going to
Even
do?
$5. Yeah.
We're
You
gonna have
gotta
more.
tell
We're gonna
them.
have more episodes. We're gonna be able to afford another member for the team, and we're gonna be able to launch the men's podcast.
Yeah.
Which
we're
is
going to
crazy.
launch JJ's own show just for men.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. Which would
That would be
so
fun.
cool.
And that would be so awesome because we want to keep investing in men and serving men.
Yeah.
And that would be an awesome way
Be
for
so
a
cool.
men's
We have that goal.
podcast to just serve and encourage, especially single and dating men.
Yes. And you guys, there's some good news on that. Like the percentage of men who have been listening to the podcast have gone up. So it has gone up by like 4 or 5% over the past few months, which is big. So
Well, 'cause
shout out to the guys.
when we
and shout
started-
out to you, babe.
Thank you. When we started a year ago, I think it was like 75-25
Yeah.
or
something like
almost
that.
80-20.
Maybe
And now it's at
36%
Yeah,
of
65.
men,
So it's
which
gone
is
up.
really good. Okay. Let's
Yeah.
be honest. Like that's really
It's
good.
gone up almost 16%.
Yeah.
year.
So we're so excited.
I know.
Okay. So this has been super fun. Thanks for hanging with us. If you want to figure out and go to Patreon, you just go to patreon.com/heart of dating. Super easy.
And we're ditching ads.
Yeah. Well, like we're gonna
Off.
trickle out of ads.
Yes. We're going to be trickling out of ads.
Yeah.
So you guys don't have to hear, which by the way,
That's our goal. We might not be able to do that entirely, but that our goal is to get rid of ads.
And when we do ads, by the way, we turn down a lot of ads actually.
Yeah, oh my gosh, so many.
Because
yeah.
there's nothing worse than hearing your
They're
favorite
like, hey, here's
person.
this lingerie company. I'm like, I'm not talking about
No,
lingerie.
we get some like pretty ridiculous ass. But the other thing is like, I personally hate when my favorite host has to half-heartedly read an ad about a product that they
That's so
do not
random,
care about.
right? If we do have quote unquote ads on the show, it's going to be most likely not like from our podcast agency. It's going to be like a company that we're like partnering with above and beyond the podcast.
Yeah.
Like we're going to do stuff with them in email, on Instagram, like maybe events with them. And we want to tell you about them on the podcast.
We only partner with partners who we would use.
Yeah, so that's
ourselves.
different than like an ad that books a slot for 90 seconds with us.
Yes.
Different.
But like Athletic Greens, like there's a variety of different partners who've been around for a while that we actually use and love.
Yeah, I
And
take Athletic Greens every
We
day.
would never use, for me, a makeup that I wouldn't particularly enjoy and try and sell you
Oh,
guys.
babe.
Or like a lip filler,
A lip filler?
Yeah.
Are you joking me?
People have asked.
Yeah, you do have luscious lips.
Well, the lip filler service were like, we can go even bigger. And I thought about it.
Babe, stop it.
Would you still love me?
Baby, don't. Do the face. Do it so they can see on YouTube. We're doing the lip face.
Dude, if you walk around LA and Orange County, it's just a bunch of ducks
Especially Orange County.
walking around. It's nuts.
I'm sorry. I can't laugh because people are listening right now. And,
Well, if
some
you do
people
have lip fillers and you're listening,
done well.
Exactly.
But also, there's a lot of people who don't. Okay.
listen, if you have it done well, then no hate towards you. If you don't, we're here for you and support you to,
Baby,
get it done well.
Anyway, we do not have lip fillers, just to clarify, in case anyone is wondering. My lips are definitely not that luscious.
Uh-huh.
So.
Anyway,
You just said, you agree.
we
Give me
love
a
you
kiss on my
guys.
non-
No, I'm
luscious
good.
lips.
I'm good. Thank you. We love you guys. Kay had a lot of sugar and caffeine today.
I did not.
Uh-huh.
I didn't have any.
And this was awesome. I hope I would have enjoyed listening to this because I've always been curious about the podcast industry.
Yeah.
You kind of inadvertently listen to it without thinking about it.
Yeah.
And for me,
Can I say one last thing?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Go.
I'm sorry, baby. I interrupted you. I'm so mean.
It's okay.
No, the last thing I want to say is if you have a dream of starting a podcast or you just did, I hope this doesn't just totally discourage you.
no, I hope it helps.
I do hope it just helps and
Yeah.
helps you know more about this industry and know even us that we've been around 5.5 years and we definitely have a highly rated podcast and we get a lot of downloads and we still have a calling to this and we would still do it. Like, even if this was never bringing income. But if you're doing it to get money, it's probably not the best way to get a career out of that.
Do not quit your full-time job to do podcasting, because you are going to be knocking at your job right back.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to speak that out over you, but you do not do podcasts, and you should not to make money.
Yeah, I agree. So. We love you guys. We'll see you next week for season 11. Say bye, Lovey. Bye,
guys.
Lovey says bye. Bye.
Bye.
The Heart of Dating podcast is created by Kate Warman. It is a part of the Converge Podcast Network. Our incredible editor is the one and only Scott Caro. Our theme music was developed by the amazing Christian Ledoux. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, or if you've never written us a review or ranked us on iTunes, we'd encourage you to do so because it helps us so much to get this podcast into more people's ears. We launch our podcast each and every week on Wednesdays, so we'll see you next week.
This show is part of the Converge Podcast Network.